I asked a question earlier today. Which position group are you most concerned with going into spring? And the early wave is unanimously offensive line.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Quick bonus edition of Locked On Auburn on this Monday afternoon. Put a question out there on X. I'll probably repost it on Instagram and Facebook after this just to kind of see if there's more discussion. Because you all know, for the everydayers, like you guys know, my biggest question about this roster is pass rush. But I posed the question to you guys on social media earlier today, and it's only been about 30 minutes or so, but the first 10, 12 answers, all of them but one are offensive line. And the other one's someone making a joke about long snappers. I'm assuming it's a joke. We'll see. But yeah, it's offensive line or like offensive line cohesion or left tackle. And to me, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not going to tell you that should not be one of your questions that you're asking going into spring. I don't think it's the biggest question you should be asking, but I do think it is a question worth asking. And it's not because of the floor, in my opinion. I think you should ask questions about the offensive line because of the ceiling. I think they're going to benefit from the scheme. I think they're going to benefit from having a veteran, productive quarterback and Byron Brown behind them. But I think the floor of the offensive line is depth. I think depth allows this offensive line to at least be safe. Is it going to be the best offensive line in the SEC? No, it's not. But I do think the depth and the position battle and the competition that's happening this spring will help this offensive line. This staff has done a good job of bringing new faces in on the offensive line and across the roster. And they've done a good job of balancing, okay, these guys are for the future, and then these guys are for right now. And I think the offensive line is a really, really good picture of that. There's going to be some slight disagreement on who people think the starting five are going to be going into spring, which is fun. It's part of it. And very few people will be right. I mean, Alex Golesh said it. He's like, we've got a plan. We're going to go in with a plan of these five guys. And he's like, and I'm almost certain that it won't go that way. And that's good because you're on a quest to find those top five guys that can work and be cohesive together. But from left to right, like probably Stanton Ramil at left tackle. And then you might have Kail Ellis at left guard or Cole Skinner at left guard and whoever on the other side at the other guard. Or maybe you move a Jacob Strand or Jack Layer around. You've got some seniors there. You have Cole Best at center. We mentioned the guards there. Then at right tackle, I think it'll be Jo Simmons. And all those guys are seniors with the exception of Stanton Ramil. I think Stanton Ramil is the only guy who could, in theory, come back after this season. And then obviously Kail Ellis. But I think Kenneth McManus has a chance to push for a starting job or at least, threaten playing time. Could he be that sixth man? Possibly. Played a ton of snaps at Akron last year. And then that kind of falls into the discussion of the future. I love the idea. I didn't at first. I've come around to it. But if Kail Ellis is not your center, which it sounds like it's Cole Best, the way Alex Golesh is talking about his former center at USF that followed him over, if you put Kail Ellis at guard, give him reps, okay, awesome. Moving the center next year. And also the other guys that'll be a part of that offensive line next year, we'll see what happens with Stanton Ramil at tackle. But you have Kenneth McManus. You have Derek Plaz from Miami. You have TJ Hedrick from Ole Miss, Ty Buster, Jacoby Ward, returning guys on this offensive line from a season ago. And then they signed 5 from the high school ranks with Wilson Zaire, Parker Pritchett, Michael Lundy Foster, Mason Mathis, and Bear McWhorter. All those guys were kind of desired and coveted by other schools. So the bodies are there, and now they've got to figure out, okay, who are the best 5, or who are the 5 that create the most cohesive unit. And because of that, it's a question and not so much of a concern. And I think that's, once again, because of the floor, because of the depth. What are some of these position battles that could be more intriguing than others on the offensive line? Let's take a stab at that in just a moment, right here on this quick bonus edition of Locked on Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. Goodness gracious, Keyshawn Murphy checks every box when you talk about moving the game forward with his performance, best performance as an Auburn Tiger against the Kentucky Wildcats in dramatic fashion on Saturday. He did it in a bunch of different ways, including a 3 that I was screaming, no, do not shoot that. And then, it goes in, which is super, super fun. Mazda puts the same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it takes to get there is what makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I'm going to talk to you about Indeed, companies like yours have hired 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So listeners of this show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get that premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That is Indeed.com/podcast. Mention Locked on Auburn when you fill out your job to help support the show. Thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn your first listen or your second listen every single day, posting multiple shows every single weekday, which is great. And I hope you guys are enjoying that. So as far as, specific position battles, we've discussed a few of these. I'm on an island with this take. I haven't seen anybody else saying it. I've seen a lot of people pushing back when I say it, but I still believe it to be true. Jo Simmons and Stanton Ramil, I do believe those are your starting tackles, and everybody is just kind of, assumed that Ramil would be the left tackle. And I agree that he's the favorite to be the left tackle, but I'd like to see them both play left and both play right just to see what that looks like. I'm also I think the biggest argument against Stanton Ramil and what he did at Michigan State was injuries. He's had multiple knee injuries in the last few seasons, and that's just not an ideal situation. Don't want to label anyone as injury prone. I'm not doing that. But he has been injured during his time as being a collegiate athlete. And when you're talking about left tackle, the cornerstone of this unit, Auburn has kind of whiffed at this spot over the last few seasons. And so which of these guys between Ramil and Simmons is able to bring you the most stability? I personally think it's Simmons. We'll see exactly how these guys stacked up. Both have been compensated well from an NIL standpoint. Both are being paid as starting tackles. I'd be shocked if these two guys were not the starters. And I wouldn't be shocked if Ramil was the left tackle and Simmons was the right tackle, but I would like to see them both compete for that left tackle spot. And whoever doesn't get it just, starts at right tackle. We mentioned center with Cole Best and Kail Ellis. I've said this before at center. I've said this before with Darryl. I don't think that's a position battle. But when you talk about the guard spot, I think Kenneth McManus is going to battle for reps. I really, really do. The second year man from Akron. And then another thing that I want to look at throughout this spring is, okay, you're going to have some of these seniors. They've got 5 transfer seniors: Simmons, Best, Skinner, Strand, Lair. I don't think all of these guys start because Ramil will start. And then I think Kail Ellis starts at guard. And so where do those guys slot in as backups? I think it's best for Auburn for one of these younger tackles that they brought in through the transfer portal that hasn't really played. I think it's best for Auburn for TJ Hedrick from Ole Miss or Derek Plaz from Miami. I think it's the best case scenario for Auburn for one of these tackles to win the backup left tackle spot and the backup right tackle spot when you talk about building for the future. I said it just a second ago. As far as balancing the winning right now, adding guys for right now, but also adding guys for the future. And I think Hedrick and Plaz are definitely part of that. Both of those guys were desired coming out of high school. You look at what Hedrick was. I mean, he was a top 50 lineman in his class. And then you also look at Plaz at Miami. I mean, Miami's offensive line last year was incredible. Took them to an opportunity for them to win a national championship. And I think Plaz saw the writing on the wall. Is like, I'm probably not going to play here. I like him a lot, like both of these guys, and so I'm excited to see exactly how that plays out. And then the last two guys that we're going to discuss today, Ty Buster and Jacoby Ward. Early on, when you're kind of getting reports and rumblings from all these one-on-ones that Alex Golesh had with these players, this staff really likes Jacoby Ward and Ty Buster. I think the way they feel about Jacoby Ward is extreme. I think they really, really like him. I'm not saying they don't like Ty Buster, but I do think they like Jacoby Ward more. And do they like him to the point where he has a chance to battle for one of these guard spots? I think that path, it would be pretty uphill. I think it's an uphill battle, but I think it's worth following. Once again, I think the two deep at all of this is important too. For these senior transfers that don't get starting jobs, do some of these younger guys in Auburn's offensive line room, can they beat those guys out to be a part of the two deep, to be a part of the hypothetical rotation? It's the SEC. You're going to lose offensive linemen, whether it's for a series, whether it's for 2 or 3 games, or God forbid the season. The two deep does matter. Your backup tackle does matter. Your backup interior offensive lineman does matter. And can Ty Buster or TJ Hedrick or Derek Plaz, can those guys get into that situation when you talk about the pecking order throughout spring? I think that matters. So I think it's totally reasonable that a lot of you reached out and said, yeah, my question about the roster is on the offensive line. And I said question. I didn't say concern, to be 100% transparent. And we just went over all the questions. There's plenty of questions. My concern with the offensive line isn't as high as other positions like pass rush because of the depth. And I think the depth raises the floor for this offensive line unit heading into spring. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, or hit me up on social media. We'll see you next time. Please like the video. Please subscribe. If you're tuned in on audio, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps the show out so much. This has been Locked on Auburn.